In today's spot, we're going to be checking out the new Justice League Basic Class figures. This is the Amazonian warrior, Wonder Woman. Let's grab the tape measure. Basic Wonder Woman stands, I'm going to say she stands exactly 6 inches tall. For her accessories, to her credit, she gets 2 of them, one of which being a sword. Very simplistic looking sword sculpted in light gray plastic. It seems to have a fairly thick handle to it, but luckily the figure does hold it. She does also come with a shield, which is something that the multiverse release of Wonder Woman didn't have. Simply just clipping it to the forearm of Wonder Woman keeps the shield intact, as I indicate right here in this brief demonstration. Attaching the shield to the arm, and taking the sword and fitting it into her hand. Despite, again, the fact that the handle of the sword is so thick, she seems to hold it perfectly fine. What you can also do too is, because this one does have the shield, you can bring in the multiverse version of Wonder Woman, and it should clip, there it does, clips right onto her arm. Now granted, it doesn't have nearly any paint application whatsoever, so it may stand out like a sore thumb when you have it against this beautifully painted Wonder Woman from the multiverse figure line. Turn away now, children, turn away now, because it gets ugly after this moment. Comparing the two figures, let's just get her to stand. Comparing the two figures, let's have a look at Wonder Woman. Okay, so, oh my goodness. What a horrendous head sculpt. It has things that are decent enough to the head sculpt, and I don't know if it's just the paint that kills it, because I'm like looking at aspects of it. The nose downward to the chin seems passable. But what has happened to the eyes? The eyes not only look like they're the wrong angle. This one eye looks like it's kind of moving off to the side of her face. It is, it's not pleasant. It's not one of the better looking Wonder Womans. Comparing it, however, to the multiverse figure line, while I will not say this looks like Gal Gadot, it still looks better as a Wonder Woman than this train wreck right here. And unfortunately, that's just the start of it. The hair is pretty good, obviously a little bit different from each other. But then the rest of the body is just a fall-apart mess. She's a little bit thinner proportionately than Wonder Woman here on the left. But basic release Wonder Woman really has a lot wrong with it. Where do we start? Well, we'll put multiverse figure Wonder Woman here, and I'm going to keep her just in frame. So while we discuss all the little elements of her, you can kind of periodically go back, kind of do some comparisons. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah. For starters, she has very minimal amounts of paint. And it's unfortunate because I think the sculpt could have been passable, and it just seems like they just didn't care. The sculpting on the eagle part of her torso just doesn't look anything like how it did in the movie. Well, it does and it doesn't. It gets the general point across that this is what it looked like in the movie, but it's not anywhere near as detailed as this one here is in the background. She's got a little sculpting of the little arm band that she's got there from the movie. Again, things such as her gauntlets, very poor in paint. I mean, it's just got a little bit of gray, and that's enough just to get it across. That's all you're getting. The lower skirt, again, is not the most terrible of sculpts, but it just doesn't look at all well executed. This one's got some great, like, metallic blues and gold and stuff to it. This one not only doesn't look sculpt-wise the same, but it is missing all those little necessary areas of paint. Especially when you start getting down to the leg. It's the term phoning it in, I think, is a best way to describe Wonder Woman. Whereas here you see the little pockets and little areas where the flesh is peeking through and how the boots are strapped on either side. This has it here, but they didn't paint the gold, they didn't paint the flesh, they just said, you know what, we're just gonna do all red, no one's gonna know. Who's gonna know? Nobody. They even skipped the gold on the front. I don't want to say it's a lesser Wonder Woman because it's very apparent. One thing also that this figure has that this figure has that this figure obviously doesn't have is additional posability, which I'll get into in a second. When you get figures like this, you're pretty much expecting that they're a more scaled down basic version of what you're getting with the multiverse figures. But again, why they wouldn't just simply have one Wonder Woman figure, cut this one out completely, and just have one standalone line. All the costs of producing this mold, producing it, making it, packaging it, making different package artwork, releasing it to store shelves, the cost of shipping, the cost of putting it on a peg, because of course you're going to have to pay for your real estate space in stores. Why they simply just don't save the cost and just give us one better looking Wonder Woman figure and just call it a day. For some other comparisons, by the way, there is Wonder Woman here from the basic releases. Here's the Aquaman we just recently had a look at, and get the two that stand side by side. Wonder Woman also is very difficult to get to stand, also I might add. And here's Superman. I have Batman. I don't know where I've put him, but these are like kind of the three basic figures so far. I have yet to see a Cyborg, and I've yet to see a Flash. And then there's also the set that comes with the Superman, the Batman, and the Steppenwolf. I may pick that one up, but if this set the bar, this Wonder Woman right here, I would probably say to myself, I'm gonna pass on the other figures. Of course, me reviewing these, I'm more inclined to pick them up. It's not necessarily that I recommend them. It's simply so I can show you guys some of the stuff that's released in toy shelves. If I was, say, let's say I wasn't reviewing on YouTube, would I pick this figure up? Absolutely not. I probably would save costs on getting a lot of these figures, and I would just ultimately probably save and buy myself the Hot Toys Wonder Woman, and that's all I would buy. But for you guys, for you the people, I find myself I do pick up additional things that I wouldn't normally pick up, just so I can show you some of the stuff that's available on store shelves. She is much more an affordable Wonder Woman. She's only about $10, whereas the multiverse version of Wonder Woman was about $24. But again, I would not say that the argument could be made, well, she's just a more inexpensive Wonder Woman. Because it still doesn't make for the fact that just because something is cheaper doesn't mean that should argue the point why it's a lesser quantity or a lesser quality of item. You can't simply go to a burger joint and pay 65 cents for a hamburger that tastes like crap. And somebody says, well, what do you expect for 65 cents? I would expect that hamburger just wouldn't exist if it's at that lesser grade. That's kind of what I feel like when it comes to Wonder Woman here. For her posability, her head rotates left and right, so that's something. Arms hinge outward, as well as she has the rotation all the way around. She does have the bend in the elbow, which is at least nice, and she does rotate the lower arm, and she rotates in the hand. She also has the little hinge going there as well. Gets herself a waist swivel, forward and back motion on the legs, nothing out. That's all you're going to get. And she does have a bend at the knee. By the way, as well, she does have the sculpted lasso in there. It doesn't seem like she's got a place to hold the sword. I guess what you could always do is take the sword and just kind of run it behind the strap. You could do something like that. But it doesn't look like there's really a section where she can hold it. I guess you could have it housed here as well. It's just too big of a sword for too small of a figure that seems to make any sense whatsoever. When a toy company releases basic class figures, or when a company releases two different class figures, one the higher end collector, I'm doing the quotes right now, collector grade figures, and then the basic figures, you tend to expect that the basic figures aren't going to be spectacular. Wonder Woman, I think, is the worst of the bunch. Her face sculpt is terrible. She does have really a lot of missing aspects on paint, But I guess you could really say that as the same for Aquaman. Aquaman didn't really have a whole lot of paint, but at least his head sculpt was fairly decent. If I was to outright recommend this figure, I would say, in all honesty, pass on getting the basic figures. And depending on where your market is, either go with the multiverse figures, or I would just outright hold off and get something like, maybe like the Figure Arts, or, you know, like the higher end action figure releases of these guys. That's where the market is. You want a really accurate looking figure, I would really hold off and get figures such as that. The basic figures I would just basically avoid at all costs. But again, like if you're shopping for a child, or if you're a kid yourself and you just want to get a Wonder Woman pickup, it's not a terrible figure from that standpoint. But from the standpoint of looking anything like Wonder Woman, this is probably one of the worst ones I've seen in recent memory. Today, once again, we were looking at the basic class figures. This was from Justice League, and we're looking at, well, we were looking at Wonder Woman, although it's not certainly one of the best Wonder Woman figures out there. Definitely, hopefully in these reviews, I can only convey to you guys, I'm not recommending these in any way because I'm simply picking them up. If I had solely the money just to collect these on my own and I wasn't reviewing them, I would probably outright be passing on the basic class figures altogether, and I would be saving myself up for something a little bit more higher end, where I'm spending more, you know, like the $40 to $50 price point that some of the higher end figures are asking for, and I would just avoid these at all costs. But then again, as me as a reviewer, I'm trying to pick up these things as well to show you guys some of the stuff that's on the market. And from a market standpoint, I still would avoid this figure. Again, as always, guys, thanks for watching, as you always do. If you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe to this channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that little subscribe button down below. You won't miss a beat when it comes to future videos. And if specifically you want to check out more Justice League stuff, I've got a playlist on this channel you're watching right now, that's solely dedicated to the Justice League movie. So if you want to go back and check out the multiverse figures or some of the other basic class figures, you'll find them all on that playlist. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.